Okay, Jori, I've got to talk about Rashod Bateman and drum beats. Okay?
Yeah, you do. You care a lot about this. It's going to be okay, Matt. We're going to get through this.
Please do not make fun of me, Jori. Number one, I'm sensitive.
No, we are here to support.
And number two, this is my life, okay? I'm being obsessed about strange receivers. Like this is my business partner James Coe last year at Reception Perception on behind my back on a podcast said Matt Harmon has a weird affinity for Nico Collins. That's what he called it, a weird affinity, Jori. Number one, as somebody pointed out, isn't that that's the whole bit? That's your whole thing. Weird affinity for wide receivers. Yeah. Also, number two, Nico Collins ended up having a great season. So shut up, James. Number two. Okay, anyways, back on track here. Rashod Bateman. I have a weird affinity for Rashod Bateman. So I'm going to read off just some quotes here. Again, this all comes from Coach Speak Index on Twitter. February 2nd, in the postseason, John Harbaugh says this about Rashod Bateman. Rashod Bateman has a great future. He's going to be starting, playing a lot of snaps next year. Said Bateman he's a great route runner. February 27th, at the Combine, John Harbaugh, on which player he expects to make a big leap in 2024. I think Rashod Bateman's going to take a big step. The ball's going to get to him a lot more next year. May 23 at OTAs, Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken says, I expect a tremendous year out of Rashod Bateman when talking about getting him more involved. July 22nd at training camp, John Harbaugh, head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, says on Rashod Bateman, quote, he's expected to be a top receiver in the league for us. That's what we're planning on. If you're a person that believes that actions speak louder than words, Jori Epstein, look at the actions of the Baltimore Ravens. So formal. Look at the actions of the Baltimore Ravens. They don't add any big name veteran receivers. They don't take a guy until the 4th round in Tez Walker, who's a bit of a developmental pick. And they gave Rashod Bateman like a little contract extension because his agent screwed up his 5th-year option last year. So I say all that to say, Jori, is this not a perfect example of drum beats, right? Like a steady progression throughout the course of the offseason. And am I asking you this because this fits my agenda as a guy who has been a longtime fan of Rashod Bateman and agrees like he is a really good route runner. He does execute his assignments. He just hasn't gotten a lot of targets. He could get a lot more targets this year. Jori, this is what goes on my mind on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, this reminds me of when I played volleyball in middle school and high school, and I would always get like the most improved player or like the best sportsmanship one, and it was never the most valuable player. It was most improved, and it was podcast. Like it was like this girl worked hard, and we want to let her know that we see it, we hear it, and we reflect it. Like a best receiver in the league, like. Is he even going to be the best receiver on this team? Is Zay Flowers no longer on the Ravens? Did I miss something? Like, I don't want to curb this. And again, I am guilty of this too, because I just told you all about how A.J. Dillon is going to light up your Packers feed this year, and it might be the same thing. I think coaches have their training camp pets. I think John Harbaugh believes this, but I think there's like an element of this of like he wants to like will it to be true. I think there's an element that he wants to inspire Rashod Bateman to make it true. And then he probably also looks good. I also was having a conversation with someone at Bears practice today. And we were talking just about like quarterbacks that look really good in practice and how I've been around some quarterbacks who just like look so below average in practice and then crush it on game day. And then quarterbacks who look so athletic and like they're lighting your hair on fire in practice and then struggle on game day. And so Rashod Bateman clearly seems to be winning practice. He seems to be winning, July? I don't know. We'll see about September and October. I don't want to crush your soul, Matt. I don't.
Well, you basically said Rashod Bateman is the participation trophy of wide receivers. So
the most improved trophy and the participation trophy are not the same. One of them is for top effort, like not just participating. He has effort here.
Yeah, well,
he's working.
He's working at it. And the only, again,
I just don't know what the results are going to be. I think it's a little soon to get too excited.
Definitely don't know what the results are going to be.
But like you said about your fantasy audience, I will be here for you, Matt, no matter what happens with Rashod Bateman.
Thank you. Hopefully you're not the only one, because these are also quotes that have been sent to me. Because I'm going to need it. The reason I'm still like dying on the Rashod Bateman hill is that I do think, unlike, the typical practice like rando who pops up or anything like that, I think the context of this guy's career, and this is kind of what I, on a serious note, wanted to ask you about, is like the idea of the Reclamation Project player and how teams handle this, because this is a player they took in the first round. And when he's been on the field, And again, like watching him play, charting him for reception perception. And this is why I think the team believes this stuff too. Like he is a guy that plays really well. He does get separation. He just has had horrible injury luck, right? And he even said after last season was over, he's like, I didn't even think I was going to play last season because he was coming back from this foot injury. So yes, typically like we see a guy who has not been productive through his first 3 seasons in the league, quote, played a full season or close to a full season last year. It's like, oh yeah, he had 300 yards or something, like who cares, move on. But I do think the context of this individual situation and the fact that the team does seem so willing to give him this benefit of the doubt and be that kind of reclamation project, I don't know. I'm just fascinated if like this is a normal thing or if it's something we can really count. Can we count on it? No, Jori, we cannot count on it, but it's something that I am at least willing to keep the candle lit for.
Yeah, I will say I think I'm a little biased based off my experience being around a couple players in my career in similar situations who everyone wanted to come back and they just didn't make it to where they thought, especially after an injury. I will ask you
the Gallup example, by the way, like we talked about him up the top. He's somebody that this does come to mind.
I said we're not naming names.
I'm naming names without you. You're not naming names. I'm recklessly speculating, Jori, as somebody who just sits at this desk all day. But I think Gallup was a guy who had that torn ACL and he just never regained form. And, you know, was it a confidence issue? Was it a health issue? I don't know. The fact that is why, like you saying the Ravens almost like willing this to believe, like putting that confidence in, I do think is an interesting
matters, I will
variable
say. I do think confidence is a big variable. And again, now that we've named names, I will withhold my further speculative.
Again, you didn't name any
results.
names. I am recklessly speculating as a non-insider.
Let's just say I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I think that your theories have credence.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I think just I'm living on both sides here because part of me I never wanted.
You're right. I hope Rashod Bateman crushes it this year.
I mean, you and me both.